Thank you for coming. We have to say at the outset, this is an experiment. We've got no idea how it's going to go, but I'll tell you the reason I think you're here. When we started talking about the bicentenary, the idea of having a history festival, by which they mean a history conference and a series of exhibits of historical nature, came up right at the beginning. And I thought the good idea would be to try and get all the local people to participate in that process. Now, we don't expect everybody to be academics trained in historical discourse. So the next issue then was we had to tell people in Richmond where history was available and how they could go about presenting it, which is what this is, the first step. There's a parallel activity going on in the two local schools, St John's and Richmond Primary, and the school children are being invited to also make contributions to the History Festival. Unfortunately, History Festival, which is in January, will be, of course, in the middle of school holidays, but we hope we'll be able to get some of their materials and carry it forward for display at the History Festival. In a longer term sense, what we'd also like to try to do is to rekindle, whichever way you like to put it, interest in local history. And if that can come out of this whole process, it means that once the bicentenary itself is finished, we hope things continue after that. And for those of you who've got your diaries with you, you've got about 50 years before you have to start planning for the 250th. I guarantee I will not be here. So the idea, and since people are here, what we also thought we'd do is to take a couple of minutes at each of the talks which we have Richmond Talks program, which we have lined up, to give you a more detailed overview of some of the forthcoming events. Noel has just given an overview of the whole lot, and in a moment I'm going to ask Gary Richardson, who will come along and talk about the first of the weekends. After that's finished, I'm going to come back and talk about where you find local history, and then the main act tonight will be Ben Jones, who keeps moving around, he's over there, who will be talking about, was up on the screen a minute ago, about the geology of the Coal River Valley, and I'll explain why we're doing that when we get to that. If Gary could come forward. Gary has worked for 40 years in local government. He's held various positions, including the council clerk at Richmond for 6 years prior to the mergers in 1993. Following that, he worked at the City of Clarence in senior communication and marketing and management roles until he retired about 5 years ago. He's lived in Richmond for the last 9 years, has a strong interest in the provision of services to the community, and is currently Secretary of the Clarence Council's Richmond Advisory Committee. He's involved in various community and sporting organisations, including the South Eastern Community Care, bowls and golf clubs, on which he's held various board and committee positions. Could you please welcome Gary Richardson? Thank you.